why? Also, why? Will we ever hear another episode of Max Verstappen Podcast? Welcome to Tunfall Helmets, your occasional spicy hot take roundup of the latest F1 rumours, all with almost believable conspiracy theories to back them up. Everything here is carefully researched for hours to make sure it is totally founded in logic, reason, and truth. Or not. Who knows? Should we see what we got right from last week's predictions?
Oh, sure, why not? That seems like what we should do given this podcast.
Okay, so number one, I would have bet money on this. I still think I should have bet money on this. Charles bins it at a crucial moment and embarrasses himself in some way at his home race. Sadly, not to spoil this for everybody, but he won and broke the curse.
This has just been the year of curse breaks. Lando gets a win. Charles gets a win at Monaco. What's the next curse that needs to be broken?
I don't know what other curses there are left in F1.
We should figure this out.
Yes, next week. It was massively boring. Yes, full points. Full points. 2 hours of my life I would like back, please.
Yeah, that was... I have thoughts later.
Yeah. I was making a prediction that there would be no overtakes after the first lap, excluding DNFs and bad stops. Sadly, no, but it was looking pretty solid until about lap 50 or so when Bottas overtook Sargent into Mirabeau.
I think there was only one other overtake too.
No, there was multiple because I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud. Lance Stroll got 2 people.
Well, Lance Stroll also tried to do a 3-stop strategy.
Which didn't work. Well, it's not his fault he got a puncture. Well, actually, it is his fault he got a puncture because it was totally his fault because he's the only one driving the car.
Yeah. I believe he's the one that hit the barrier with his tire into the wall.
Indeed. No, oh, wait, hang on a minute. This is Lance Stroll. The barrier jumped out at him and surprised him.
Daddy, move the barrier.
Exactly. And last but not least, in our predictions, which sadly we will have to wait for full coverage next week, is that McLaren will win the Indy 500, which hasn't started because they can't race in rain because they're a bunch of wusses.
As somebody who also competes in a sport that does not race in the rain, no, it's great. It's safety. It's important.
Safety.
I'm not sure I'd want to be going down IMS at 200 miles an hour with spray.
Yeah, no. I think that'd be a bad idea.
I'll give him a pass on that.
Yeah. As our resident statistician, would you like to update our many and varied listeners on exactly our ranking within the baseball world?
Well, we're solidly in baseball territory now with a 333 average. Yeah. So we're making bolder predictions that aren't paying off. To continue the baseball metaphor, we're swinging for the fences and striking out.
Yeah. But that's what we bring you here. We bring you the predictions that you least expect.
But I think that's a good question. Would you rather us be like, make safe, good predictions that then come true, or bold, outlandish predictions of what we want to happen?
We need to be making bold, outlandish predictions that come true. And you see, every time we make one, statistically speaking, at some point one of them will become true between now and the heat death of the universe.
Woohoo!
So, did anything happen between races? It was 1 week, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity.
Yes.
Biggest news drama was that apparently Carlos is in heavy negotiations and has been for months with, wait for it, the Williams team, which I find very confusing, and I still think this leans into my narrative that Carlos is going to end up with that seat.
I'm not so sure. I think this leans more into the narrative of Adrian Newey is getting that Williams job, or is getting a job at Williams.
I mean, yeah, but there's a lot of like faffing around on it, and I feel like if that was the case, they'd have just pulled the trigger and said, "Go for it."
Yeah, but I think Alex getting the seat, and then Carlos like now being in talks with Williams, like that to me is like, oh, this is interesting because like. I mean, unless he just really has no other spots, but then like we also heard a deal with like I think Mercedes was also rumored at one point in time, like
for Carlos.
Yeah, weren't they offering him like a 1-year deal?
Yeah, and he didn't want a 1-year deal because I mean, who wants a 1-year deal to know that you're going to be replaced by Kimi Antonelli or Max?
I mean, well, to be fair, how did Kimi do this weekend in F2?
I don't think he did very well. The last I saw, he was 4th in the sprint race. And I don't know what he was in the feature race, but he didn't look good when I saw him go past in a highlight.
Well, he didn't win either of the races.
Shocker.
He was 7th in the feature race, behind F1 points obtainer Ollie Berman.
Yeah.
And in the sprint race, he was fourth. Aren't there like weird rules in the sprint race grids of like so he's only getting near the podium when the top 10 are flipped?
Yeah. I don't think he's the second coming of Max Verstappen.
Now let's see. Qualifying A, he was fourth. Qualifying Group B, he wasn't. So he was fourth in qualifying Group A. Yeah.
But as you said to me, he's a young lad and he doesn't have power steering in F2. So.
He is a young lad who doesn't have power steering in F2, but it's one of those like, if I'm Carlos, I'm almost taking that gamble of maybe it's not a 1 year deal at this point.
But so your supposition, where you take it as a 1 year deal and a desperate hope that Kimi can't perform in his either his first year in some other team in F1, or he has a second year in F2 and still doesn't nail it. Oof. That's risky, and you're in a tractor.
Or the deal is you do a 1-1 and see if you can strike up the deal with like Mercedes and Williams to be like, I have 2 years on the grid, at least one will be in a Mercedes, and if Kimi doesn't cut it in the Williams, then
Yeah, I still don't understand what his hesitation for taking the Audi seat is, because he seems to not want to take it, and either he has privileged inside info because Dad knows how Audi works, or he's just being a chump. I don't really understand it. So.
I mean, if I'm gonna hope a team from the back of the grid comes forward, I'm hoping it's Adrian Newey goes to Williams rather than Audi joins Sauber, because I don't think it's going to be as easy as Audi thinks to build a front level car.
Yeah, maybe Audi's trying to pin this on a Mercedes 2014 type issue where they build an amazing engine and he maybe makes up for flaws in the car that we haven't seen.
Yeah, but that only got Williams so far up the grid in 2014.
True.
I mean,
true.
They did do well, but not that well.
But if you're Audi and your first year is placing where Williams did in 2014, I'd say that's pretty good for your first year. It's whether you can then capitalize on that into the second year and make a car that doesn't suck. And I'm not sure they can, but we'll find out. So I don't think nothing really. I suppose other things did happen.
Well, the Andretti drama is definitely worth talking about.
There's definitely a little bit of drama there, but I think it's a bit of a holding pattern type drama.
Yeah, but when you have the head of Liberty Media saying like he will do everything he can to prevent Andretti from being in Formula One, that's something.
Yeah, but you know what the thing that's really sad about that is I bet you they didn't get it recorded, because if they had it recorded, that would be great for the Congress senator, whoever it is that's getting all antitrusty about it. But
nobody's going to say that recorded.
Yeah.
I heard the rumor was also because of Michael somehow.
What, there's some beef between Liberty Media and Michael Andretti?
Yeah. That apparently, Michael said some bad things about Formula One in the past, and I don't know.
It's very.
I didn't research it that hard.
Yeah, it's very strange. Everybody was saying that because Andretti this week also hired, technically as an engineering consultant, although they said he was going to be head of engineering, which I don't think is quite the right word, Pat Simmons, who is finishing his gardening leave from seeing everybody else's design in the FIA itself, that this was some kind of big move, and I think this is less like a serious move than lots of people say it is, especially when he's signed on as a consultant.
I mean, if you're limited on how many teams you can consult with, that's a good person to lock down.
True.
I would say that, once again, there is something that shows Andretti is very serious about being in Formula One, more so than, I don't know, just to pick a team, Haas or Alpine.
Yes, I agree. And that's the most vexing thing. There was a really interesting statement yesterday from Ted on his notebook, the Quali notebook, that he thinks that Alpine is trying to exit. And the thing that's going to happen, and I said this a year ago, is that Andretti's going to buy Alpine. And more specifically, they're going to buy the Alpine slot in F1.
I could see it.
Yeah, and then it's so going to happen.
And then will we end up in a case somehow where Honda and Alpine go in together on another or F1 team at some point in time for the ultimate will they won't they F1 team?
If it was any other company except Renault, I would say yes. But it's Renault, and the only way Renault will be in F1 is if they tried to do a French team.
Right, but they've tried that, and
they've tried that for 40 years, and it never works. When they stack that team with French everything, it never works.
Well, it's too busy going on strike.
Exactly. Yeah, so there's that. I think that's interesting, but I think they just need to get on with it, and Andretti needs to be let into F1 and just move on with life. Especially as they also said they were putting the price up. Apparently the price was 200 million, but now F1's like, well, actually, we think it's going to be closer to 700 million as the entry fee. And Andretti apparently was like, okay, we'll pay it.
Love them. And then apparently Red Bull offered Sergio Perez a 1-year deal, and Sergio countered with, how about 2 years?
Well, 1 year is certainly more than I would have offered him.
And then we watched qualifying, and maybe they counter with a no-year deal.
Something about Checo and Christian Horner, they seem to like really get on. And I feel at this point, as Horner tries to exact his control over the team, he is pitching Checo because it puts him, Christian Horner, in a position of power.
All right, well then, just as a fun way to not talk about Monaco for longer, you kick Checo out. You have Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Verstappen, and Liam.
Who do I pick?
Who's going where?
Yuki.
Yuki to the main seat?
Yuki to the main seat, Liam into the second seat, fire Danny, and then find somebody else to put in the second AlphaTauri seat. Maybe Danny Kvyat.
They've got to have an F2 driver, don't they?
Yeah, they have a whole like coach load of them. Just rotate them through every week until they find one that doesn't suck.
There you go. Let's see. Oh, and then Lance Stroll had a great little clip about drivers deserving their seats in F1 and the super license point system, I believe is what he was talking about, and preventing paid drivers from who don't deserve their seats in F1 getting into F1.
This would be less hypocritical if he hadn't outstayed his welcome, but he has outstayed his welcome.
I will say in Lance's defense, he did deserve his seat in F1 when he came into F1. He's an F3 champion. He's done things to prove that he is capable of a chance at an F1 seat.
When he was paired with Checo, he actually was pretty level with Checo as well, right? Like, he wasn't beating him all the time, but it wasn't like, Logan Sargent versus Alex Albon.
Yeah.
So, and he got that pole in Turkey.
He did. He has more podiums than Nico Hülkenberg. Does he have 1 or 2 podiums?
Does it really matter?
Oh, it's 2 more than Nico Hülkenberg has.
Hülkenberg?
And Nico doesn't have a pole either, I believe. Oh no, he has that 1 pole in Brazil that he put into like a 4th place. Oh, Lance has 3 podiums and 1 pole position.
Wow.
So that's
maybe he should go to Audi.
Maybe. I mean, that's not bad.
Because he'd outperform his teammate.
No, but I'm saying like that's in 153 starts. That's not great, but that's a decent F1 career you can hang your hat on.
Yeah, you can parlay that into a motorsport consultant into your twilight years, just like many of those from the 80s and 90s did.
I was thinking a Sky Sports speaking role.
Oh, commentator, just like other washed-up drivers such as Anthony Davidson and Johnny Herbert.
Exactly.
Karun Chandok.
We can have a Lance Stroll follow the money section.
Yes.
Because that's one thing we're missing is like, where's the money going in F1? We need Lance for our insight into that.
Lance and Latifi do the Canadian commentating with a special section by following the money. Lance uses his insider connections because, his dad owns a team, coupled with Lance's deep economic insight from his master's degree at the London School of Economics.
And they will just forget Gilles Villeneuve exists like the rest of Canada.
Exactly.
Wait, Jacques Villeneuve.
I was wondering what you were going
other
with that.
one.
I was going to say one of them is no longer with us.
As we're about to go to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Yeah, there you go.
They remember him. They forget Jack. I forget.
Speaking of drivers...
See, just like the Canadians, I also forget him so much that I forgot what his name was.
And he even has a world championship.
He does.
Only because Michael's disqualified. So.
I was going to say only because Frank Williams was a jerk to Damon Hill. Also
factually accurate. Shall we see if any other drivers still have jobs?
Sadly, I believe they all still have jobs. However, there's somebody missing from this list that we have to now talk about.
Oh, go on. Oh, yes, excellent.
Should we lead off with that one?
I think we should finish off on that one, because I think the others are pretty easy, because I think we talked about one of them. Basically, Guan Yu Zhou is down the back. What's he doing? He's clearly not going to be an F1. Alonso, the only role he could play was holding up everybody so Lance could have a free pit stop. I mean, like, really? After his poor Imola performance, I think Alonso needs to head out of F1 now.
He didn't have the best Monaco performance either.
No, he didn't. Max couldn't overtake George Russell.
That's more of why does Monaco still have a job?
Also true.
We should have put Monaco on here. Why does Monaco still have a job?
We should have put that in there. Logan Sargent, he did manage not to finish last, which is surprising.
But
yes.
he crucially could have caused a safety car at the right time, but he didn't hit the wall hard enough when he did hit the wall.
I have 2 comments on this. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. And as Max says, if is not a thing.
Sure. Yes, but it's not if he hit the wall. He did hit the wall. He just didn't hit it hard enough.
If he could have hit it harder, he should have created a red flag situation.
Let's get Latifi in here as a driver's coach.
Yes, that's what I like to do.
Latifi, Nelson Piquet Jr., let's do it.
Yes. Shall we talk about the thing that we hinted at the beginning of this section? Because it's a very long section so far that we've rambled on for hours and hours about.
Kevin Magnussen?
Oh, we forgot about K-Mag. I forgot about K-Mag. Yeah, K-Mag.
K-Mag is also in the list of why do the stewards still have a job?
Oh, yeah, that was ridiculous. At first I thought it was Perez because I like to blame Perez because I don't really like Perez. But this was K-Mag and he just bounced it against the wall and smoked straight into Perez and caused a great big mess. And then somehow didn't get a penalty for it. First lap incident. Pfft, what a crock of crap.
Other questions floated for the top of the show is, what do you actually have to do to get a race ban in Formula One? Because I think if he's sitting on like 2 penalty points, he gets a penalty for this. But the stewards don't want to put their finger on the scale of like, oh yeah, we're actually going to kick somebody out. And so at that point, the penalty point system is worthless if you're actually not going to do it.
The stewards have a betting pool on who's going to get next year's seats. And they didn't want to tip the scales by letting Oliver Behrman have an opportunity to show he is worthy of the seat.
He's already shown he's worthy of the seat.
Yeah, but could he really drive the Haas? How bad it is. Like, he was in a Ferrari. It's a good car, apparently. But what happens when you put him in a crap car? Because that's the real test of a driver.
Ollie Bergman around Canada in a Haas? That would be a good competition for Nico Hülkenberg.
Exactly. But he's already got a seat at Audi, so it's okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, shall we?
And then there's Esteban Ocon.
Oh, man. When I watched this just after they'd called the red flag, FYI people, there was a red flag in this race in the first lap because of people's hitting things. Ocon,
Really, Dominic? Who hit things?
Who hit things? Esteban Ocon hit things.
Who else hit things that caused a red
K-Mag.
flag? Oh,
Perez.
K-Mag. Interesting.
Yeah. He hit people, he hit walls, he damaged it. He should be charged for the damage he created to that barrier.
Should be caused for the damage he created in my morning.
Yeah, exactly. Esteban Ocon why is it always Esteban Ocon and why is it always his teammate?
There is something funny about that. It's why does it always happen to him? Also, very interesting they converted his 10-second penalty to a 5-place grid drop, not a 3. They were all expecting a 3 and it was...
Yeah, justified. Because to return to the point that it's always Ocon and his teammate, the only teammate I believe he hasn't taken out was Danny Rick.
Interesting.
Suspicious. But yeah, he took out Checo. He took out... Who was the guy he was taking out?
He took out Max trying to unlap himself.
Yeah, took out Max, but he wasn't his teammate. He took out Gasly multiple... Oh, he kept trying to take out Alonso, but you can't really take out Alonso because Alonso's too smart for that. And then his team principal went on national TV in France on Canal Plus and was like, there will be repercussions because of this.
That'll be the most interesting thing to see, like what he's talking about, because he's out of a deal at the end of the year. So is this just like, screw it, we're not renewing your deal? Or are they actually going to pull him from the seat earlier than that?
I think that what they should do is, because he's just such a pain in the ass, and I think he's probably a pain in the ass to deal with every day, they should make him sit out one race to prove a point, and they're just going to be mad at him for not, because he won't get re-signed, and let Jack Doohan prove that he's not very good at driving an F1.
Sure. I wonder if also this is like, to continue referencing movies that Dominic has never seen, if like at the beginning of Hot Fuzz, where he's just going to have to bring cake for the office every day.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen Hot Fuzz. Excellent film.
Great movie.
Yes. So in summary, and short, to wrap up this segment, everybody's in trouble. They all are still suspicious about whether they still have a job.
Charles probably does get a pass for at least one more week.
One more week, but it's still unclear whether he's the better driver or not. Fair
enough. Well, he is certainly good at putting in a good one-lap pace, which is what we should talk about with quali.
I thought this was a very strange qualifying.
Yeah, James Vowles was on the Sky, he's like the team principal's Sky chat this year, or for this race. And what he was saying, like, the tires were very hard to actually get into the working window.
Yeah. Lots of people were doing 2 warm-up laps, like both the Mercs and the Ferraris were doing two out laps. Like they were doing a slow lap, then a not full pace lap, and then going for it and it seemed to work, actually. Credit to Ferrari and Mercedes.
Yeah, it almost felt like tuning in to watch it. It almost felt like a rain session where it's like, screw, we're just gonna put a bunch of fuel in the car and just go do a bunch of laps and see what happens. Like it felt like session 1 felt like a rain session.
Yes, it was exactly like that, and it was like the track was evolving, but like this wasn't like a track that wasn't used for anything else. This was a track that was used for F2 and F3, and I'm sure there was a Porsche Super Cup and blah de blah de blah, and so it didn't feel like it was track evolution. It's very odd.
Yeah, but James Giles was saying they were expecting like 2 or 3 tenths of track evolution into Q3. So I don't know if the rubber compounds are just different enough or what.
Maybe. But eventually it happened, and I thought Lewis was actually having a really good qualifying until Q3 when he couldn't put it together and got out qualified by Russell, making it 8-1 qualifying head-to-heads for him. So, and then he was on the TV and being like, "I'm not going to out qualify George this weekend." And when asked why, he's like, "Well, you'll just have to see."
And rumorly that was because George had the upgrades and Lewis didn't.
It looks like that was the case. George had a new front wing, which they claim was worth 1 to 2 tenths, which is interesting because then Lewis was basically, I think, 1 tenth, maybe 2 tenths behind George. So we'll see.
Hey, that's 1 to 2 tenths.
And Ted, before everybody gets on the conspiracy theories and says, "Look how that's going to screw Lewis," Lewis declined the new front wing because he didn't want to bend the front wing and have to go to the old front wing halfway through the weekend, causing everything to be kind of weird and upset.
Fair enough. So Lewis just thinks he's going to hit a wall at Monaco. Fair enough.
Yep. Somehow he didn't, though, so good work.
Max did hit a wall on his last lap of qualifying. That would have been interesting to see where he ended up if he didn't do that. But man, he was trying to push for it.
Yeah, and that car was not complying. Not complying.
It does not like the big curbs of a street track, that is for certain.
It does not.
But it hasn't ridden the curbs well in all of the ground effect cars.
Yep.
Rules.
Haas forgot to send a note to their technical scrutineer protection team telling them how to measure the gap in their new rear wing, and so they measured it the old way because apparently the shape changed, and they measured it what they thought was the widest part, but it's not the widest part, and they got disqualified because their rear wing was too wide. Whoops.
But they only got disqualified from qualifying, but they still got to start on like the last row of the grid.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed by that. I kind of thought that they should have been disqualified from the whole weekend. Not because I thought it was justified, but because it would have been spicy.
Yeah. You just don't want... we want 18 cars around Monaco instead of 20.
Exactly. I will say overall qualifying was still fun. It was good. It was interesting. It was exciting. It wasn't bad for an hour. Would be happy if I'd paid my money to watch that. Shall we move on to the race recap?
Oh, sure. Should we rant now or rant later?
I just save that for the end. Let's just cover the details, and then we can spend our time at the end.
Well, there was no penalty at the start for K-Mag.
Yep.
I thought. Yeah.
Terrible. Terrible.
Carlos Sainz really got a get out of jail free card.
Yes. Lucky lad.
Boy, that would have been interesting if that didn't happen.
Yeah, it would have been what, Norris on Piastri?
Yeah, it would have been Norris and Piastri and then Charles.
Yeah, and some team orders coming in there with somebody on the phone blaring out saying, "Let me pass, don't let him pass, what's going on?"
Well, I think the also thing was, like, throughout kind of the latter half of the race, like, Carlos was kind of backing Lando up a little bit to help maintain that gap to George. So, that goes away with Carlos. Like, I don't think anything changes because...
No, it's Monaco.
Yeah. Let's see, it's always Esteban's fault. Yep.
We did that. George got told to manage his tyres up front and then whined on the radio about how this was going to open up a pit stop gap, which it did, but I think he should get a penalty, probably 5 to 10 seconds converted into a 5-place grid penalty for whining, and because he decided to, malicious compliance and just drove down like a granny. It was ridiculous.
Well, yeah, and then George being slow caused, Charles to continue to be slow. It's like, geez, if we're going to race in the 118th, let's get out, the 1980s cars and at least have some fun with it.
Exactly, they're narrower, there might be some overtaking, they sound better, it's all good.
People die when they break.
Exactly. Charles is going to have a massive hangover, as he already said on the radio, because he said Jimmy's is going to be off the chain. If any of you are in Monaco and happen to get into Jimmy's tonight, please send photos to feedback@tinfoilhelmets.com, because I would like to see what debauchery and craziness goes on inside that nightclub.
It won't be better than Toto Wolff in Abu Dhabi in 2021.
Yeah, no, I don't think it will.
That is ridiculous. That is still the ultimate best. I think Charles's new race engineer is good. Can we say he is the reason that Charles can actually win Monaco rather than?
I will agree. I will agree with that. And on top of that, it's now 2 races in a row where he's had the new engineer, and 2 races where he's had good performance and has had overall a good experience as a driver. Including, they even got to the point they had banter. I couldn't work out what was being said, but the commentators said there was banter going on the radio. That would never have happened with Xavi.
I think the more interesting thing is also, like, who's the new guy's name?
Brian.
Yeah. Brian, I think, is looking at the screens in front of him because we never get we are checking, or like, because like Charles has been so used to having to like run strategy from his car, and he was doing some of that from this race, and Brian was just like, shut up, Charles, we're looking, don't say anything on the radio that's going to give it away, we see what you see, we got this, bud. Like, that to me is even more telling than anything else.
Do you think this means Brian gets a big fat bonus if he continues this through the end of the year from the Ferrari team?
I mean, sees where Charles ends up in the World Championship.
Is this where they've trained him, Brian, to be given to Lewis so that Lewis can get his championship?
Yeah, and then we bring Javi back. Hooray!
Yeah. Charles apparently couldn't see properly on the last 2 laps because he was crying from the emotion thinking about his father, which I thought was kind of adorable. And also, if you're crying and going around Monaco, is that really the right time to be doing that? Can you at least wait until you've gotten over the finish line?
No.
So, okay, shall we talk about the big segment, the big open question, which is...
how do you solve a problem like Monaco?
Yeah, cancel the race and move somewhere else.
Have you seen The Sound of Music? Since we're continuing to reference old movies that are great and Dominic hasn't seen.
I'm aware of The Sound of Music, and I've seen various clips because there's the whole spinning thing in the mountains, but I've never seen The Sound of Music. I hate musicals. I hate musicals with a passion. I cannot stand musicals.
Interesting.
Deeply. I can't... what my problem is when I hear music, I only hear the tune. I can't hear lyrics. Like, I have to concentrate so hard to hear lyrics. And so when I go watch a musical, I just get really confused. And I don't understand why people keep breaking out into song. Like, nobody does that in real life. This is what's going on. My whole brain just breaks. I can't stand musicals.
Okay, well, in that case, a little bit of a personal plea that I don't know if Dominic's gonna make the edit, but Zach, Mike, Maddie, please send in musicals that you think Dominic should be watching.
No. I refuse to comply.
People we at least know who listen. Yeah. How do you solve a problem like Monaco?
All seriousness, it needs to be cancelled. Like, so either you have to completely change the cars, or you have to cancel the race.
I think there's a middle ground in here, because I understand that Monaco is important to Formula One. It's almost more of an event than a race. And my one massive complaint about this race was Max had it was a great call to pit when he did. He was putting in 2 seconds a lap faster laps. Like, on any other track, he was on for the win with how everybody else was worried about track position. Even at harder to overtake tracks like Hungary or something like that, like, he was gonna get past. But because at Monaco, you can put your foot down coming out of Rascasse and coming out of Portier, and then you're fine for like the entire lap. So, like, George had 2 corners he had to worry about, and Max couldn't get past, even with having massively more pace.
How much of this was because Max knew that if he tried to dive bomb George would just smash him into the wall?
I'm not sure that much, because, I mean, granted, the Red Bull was kind of like bad in the third sector, specifically coming out of Rascasse, and I think, like, if they fix that, I think he gets him with DRS down into Sandoval. I think you need a DRS zone in the tunnel.
Would you swap the one on the start-finish straight, which isn't really very useful, to place this one DRS zone in the tunnel?
I would, if I was going to... No, I'd put one in the tunnel, and I'd also consider one going up the hill into Casino Square, but I don't think there's a hard enough braking zone to justify it. Because I think it's like because like you generally have a hard braking zone at the end of like a DRS segment.
Yeah.
So
what about placing it between Casino Square into Mirabeau?
That could be good. But with it's a bit short, and like I think you'd have to flatten out the bus stop. Because like they already dive around the bus stop, that you need to kind of flatten it out, otherwise.
So you can get two side by side.
So you can get two side by side. So with the bus stop there, probably not. Yeah. So I think you need a DRS zone in the tunnel.
You've just given me an amazing idea on how to spice up Monaco. You have a bus on the track, and it goes around.
I was thinking we had one of those. His name was Yuki Tsunoda.
But the bus will be narrower than the F1 car.
I thought your spicy idea was that we just level out the bus stop all the way across and make a ramp.
Oh, there we go. I could go with
that. You have to jump the car. We'll just set up super soft suspension. It'll be fantastic. How well can you do? Because I think there's some of the stuff with Monaco of like, I understand that the FIA is probably not wanting to do anything to one-off to make it gimmicky, because like they want all the rules for all the races to be the same. But the fact that you had like a spot where, like in hindsight, of course McLaren should not have pitted Lando, because there was no way Lando was going to make it around anybody, even with fresh grippy rubber. Like, so at that point you no longer have a racetrack. And if you no longer have a racetrack, what are we doing here? So we either need to not go to Monaco, or we need to have a special Monaco rule just for Monaco to fix things.
The real question is with the cars the way they are, there is nothing you can do to make cars actually be able to overtake. And I think that fundamentally makes it difficult.
To me, it's not necessarily... Honestly, I am okay with a race with no overtakes, as long as there's a strategic element to the race. And because of specifically in this one, on the red flag on lap 1, when everybody's tires can make it to the end, and you've given them all a free stop to change rubber... Like, George even made it on mediums. George, Mr. I'm going to always eat my tires. He still made it on the mediums. So maybe Max should have put on a soft. Maybe that would have been better. But, like, I think you told me during the race, I think Lewis Hamilton and I have a similar idea, which is maybe the only tires at Monaco should be softs. Ultra softs, hyper softs, the softest of softs. Like, so yeah, let's just bring us and everybody just gets softs, and then then it becomes a 2 or 3 stop race. But now it's a issue of like, well, who are you going to be stuck behind? Who are you racing? Like, what kind of laps can you put in? When are you going to pit? Like, so what
kind of skills you have for managing your tires?
Sure, because like when Indy finally starts, like one of the craziest things about Indy is if you can make if it's going to be a 6 or 7 stop race, but if you can make it on 5 due to like safety cars fueling good strategy, that's a 40-second savings.
Yeah, the only thing that bothers me is everybody in Formula One, the ultimate goal is overtakes. And I feel like overtaking in the pit lane, effectively, while it does make it a little bit more intriguing, it doesn't lead to excitement.
Yeah, and I agree. But like if the commentators are billing Monaco as a chess match, and I'm fine with having chess match style races, because I think, there was if you want to go turn back the Wayback Machine, there was Schumacher in Spain in 2004 or something like that, or one of those races where like he did a 4-stop race and it was just splash and dashes all the way, and it was the fastest way to get to the line. Yeah, he didn't overtake anybody on track, but he was fastest. And so I think there's room in the schedule for, your Azerbaijan massively long straight with a huge DRS advantage, like let's get some good overtakes going. I think there's room for that to let the racers race, but I also think if you're talking a championship where there is a constructors championship, well then let's see how well the whole pit wall does on strategy. And I think there's a spot for that. But if you're billing this race as, oh, this is the chess match of Formula One, the chess match does you no good when somebody's blocking the whole damn board and you can't move a piece.
True. I will subscribe to your theory, but I still think you need to narrow the cars a little bit. Just a little bit. Or the other one I thought was improving the brakes significantly.
I mean, you could also just take off the wings. Just pull off the front and rear wings. Let's see what they can do just solely on grip. My only problem with that is, I feel like that gets too gimmicky of, now you just made a one-off car. So it's what can we do inside the rules that are in place? I think Monaco would be a great place to do, one-shot qualifying. Or we send everybody out to do a lap and then they all come in and they go again in one more order and best time wins.
Do we think that the supposed active aero from 2026 could be room within the rules to allow, not that the car itself has different type of aero per se, but the way it's deployed may create something more interesting.
Maybe, but I mean, you can go back in time to even when the cars were smaller. I mean, we referenced the 80s cars earlier, and there's the race where Nigel Mansell can't get around Ayrton Senna. Speaking of which, we didn't even talk about McLaren's Senna cars.
Ugh, terrible livery.
Looks like a Benetton.
Exactly. I do agree with that. As I'm up to 1990 in my rewatch of F1. Nobody can ever take over at Monaco. It never happens. It's like every year everybody gets stuck, and so when people say, "Oh, but the cars were so much better in the past," I'm like, I don't think they really were. That's why I think if you're going to do it, you need a much narrower car. You'd have to go back to like the 50s before you got cars that could overtake at Monaco.
It's either like, let's put them all in go-karts, which would be fun, but not a great spectacle for Formula One. Or you got to try to do something within the rules. And I think that's like, we're only going to bring soft tires and y'all are going to have to deal with it, I think is interesting. Because if you give them a tire that only lasts 20 or 30 laps, that gets interesting.
We could also try spicing this up a little bit. It's similar to my previous suggestion of sometimes when you have a race and you just want like a random number generator that blows somebody's engine up, because we've got, reliability these days, and that means everybody can just drive around. It gets very boring. What you need to do is you have like a fake blowout, and it's like you get a thing on your dashboard that goes beep, 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 and you've got to get back into the pit, and you can't go more than 75 miles an hour.
What about every stint you get to cut the Nouvelle chicane once?
Okay, no, I like that. You get one per tire change.
One per tire change, you get to go straight through the Nouvelle chicane.
And if you change tires 8 times, you can go through eight times.
Yeah. You get one per stint. You get one Joker lap through the Nouvelle chicane. Because Max would just go straight past George. Like, done. But that's the one.
You see, that raises an even more interesting way that you choose to set your car up, right? Because if you've got ridiculously stiff suspension and you go through that, somebody's going to try going really fast and launch themselves, but they're going to put softer suspension on it, which will compromise the rest of your lap. No, I like this idea. It's a good idea. It's
even better because if you put the DRS zone in the tunnel, then you get DRS, you get the straight shot through the Nouvelle chicane, and then you're breaking it to back.
Yeah, and so that's the thing, is who has the cojones not to brake before they hit the curb? Okay, so we've solved...
I mean, we could solve Monaco, but, I don't think the FIA are listening to us.
We don't know that.
That's true.
We don't know that. I mean, Karun Chandok, who's taken this weekend off to go to the Indy 500 and not do any F1, he could be listening, and he designs racetracks. He could be consulting. We could be creating the next great city circuit in the world. Maybe this is what will happen for you, New York. You can remodel the Monaco track in New York, except we have new ideas. Brilliant. Love it. We should recap to make sure that when the FIA send this clip around in their email about how to fix the race, along with Liberty Media. So first of all, we're going to let people go over to back one time per pit stop.
Nouvelle chicane.
Sorry, Nouvelle chicane. Sorry, yes.
Only soft tires.
Only soft tires.
Yep, and DRS zone through the tunnel.
There we go. Boom.
Yeah.
Solved. Do you have anything more to add? Is there anything we haven't discussed here that you think is important for our fervent and passionate listeners to hear?
I'm just really upset about the race not allowing a race to happen, pretty much.
Yes, I agree. I would like my 2 hours back.
That's pretty much where it goes. Because I'm not going to go so far to say I'm a Monaco apologist of like, no, this track needs to be on the calendar and things like that. I understand its importance on the F1 calendar, and I think it needs to stay on the F1 calendar. But then you need to do something else to make it actually a race.
I agree. And it happens every year, and every time somebody talks about it, and I feel like there needs to be something to be different about it. K-Mag, of all people, was suggesting it should be a sprint race, which I think is a terrible idea, but nonetheless, at least it shows some of the creative thinking that needs to go into this.
I think the problem with the Monaco conversation is it's usually it should be on the calendar or it shouldn't be on the calendar. There's never a conversation about, are there any sort of one-off rule changes we can make for Monaco? For a governing body that loves to tinker with things of like, oh, we're going to add sprint races or we're going to try points for fastest lap. They will tinker with all of that, but they won't consider tinkering with Monaco, which is arguably needs the most tinkering with.
Maybe one of the things they need to consider is changing the track. Like there's a whole city state to play with. Where could they go to change the dynamic of the track by adding an extra bit in it?
What if they went backwards? Just go the other way.
You flipped it in reverse. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, try it at least.
Oh, go the other way. Then you get a DRS zone down the hill into Sandoval.
There we go. Yes, perfect. Perfect. And there's a runoff zone, so you've got plenty of space if you screw it up.
That would be a who is the last of the late breakers moment.
Not Danny Rick, because he's washed up.
I mean, geez, like, seriously, there's got to be something.
Exactly. They need to try things like that, right? Like, that is a great opportunity in the context of F1 where they don't have to create weird rules and exceptions, and they don't have to, like, carve out exceptions in special cases. It's just a different... They just run the track differently. It's totally fine.
And there's like, so little runoff as it is.
Yep.
That, like... Okay, there's still a barrier there. Like...
They rebuild the barrier every year. It's not like a permanently attached barrier. Every year they have to re-put it back, and so therefore making it slightly different is not. It's not like you're changing everything and you have to like put millions into it. You just put them in a different place.
Well, yeah, but like some of the tracks, if you talk about running them backwards, it's like, well, the gravel trap is now on like the absolute wrong side for the runoff, and now there's like a fence in the way instead of a gravel trap. Like, yeah, but in this case, it's all just fence all the way around. So it's like, cool, we still have a fence. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, something needs to change. Maybe it's the 2026 cars, but I don't have much hope. Because we're also in a situation with these cars now that they're just so fast and capable that, like, honestly, you could make them go-kart sized. But if they had the same level of, like, downforce and traction that they have, Max still isn't getting around George. Because he couldn't close the gap because George could just put down power in the traction zone. So it doesn't matter. The car size is not the issue.
Well, except that you could try squeezing past because it's a bit safer and you might actually be able to pull it off.
Sure, but... And you might open up, like, one more acceleration zone, but, like, it's still the point of there's only so much you can do, and I don't think if you cut the cars in half, like, in size half. The other option is bring back refueling, because that would also entice more pit stops and things like that. Every other motorsport in every Formula Series in the world refuels except F1, 2, and 3.
The problem with everything that you try to do at Monaco is that you're trying to add into the strategy, but you're still not changing what happens on track. I'm not saying it doesn't make it a bit more exciting, but it doesn't fundamentally change the dynamic.
But at least then we would have a dynamic.
The only way you're going to get this is if you enforce mandatory things that cannot be optional, which requires you to change a bunch of rules. Like, you have to say, you must stop 4 times. When you stop 4 times, it makes a difference, but you have to stop. Otherwise, people will just like, I'm going to camp out and put enough fuel in to last to the end.
We need somebody in the swimming pool with a bucket just dumping water onto the track.
Yes. Bernie would love that.
Yeah, just something. Because, like, honestly, the Monaco races that have been good is a wet or drying track. A wetting track or a drying track.
Because the dynamics change.
Right. So, like, even then, like, just, I don't know, water the roads. Something.
So, spicy takes. There is not a lot of spicy takes, except that apparently Red Bull whining about their terrible race weekend because they couldn't get anything to work was because the car did not correlate, the on-track performance did not correlate with the simulator, which now means we have 3 teams who apparently aren't correlating. We have Mercedes, we have Aston Martin, and we have Red Bull, whose cars are not correlating with the simulator.
You know, speaking of Mercedes and not correlating, and people or in spicy drama between the races we missed, Jamie Allison was trying to leave Mercedes, and the board said, no, you can't leave. And what Christian said, like, there have been like 200 people from Mercedes that have left over the last couple of years. Which
Toto counted and said it was only 19.
Either way, what if all these people have leaked Mercedes' bad correlation to the rest of the grid?
That is exactly what I'm kind of thinking about.
Yeah.
That's exactly the kind of thing I'm thinking of. Because I thought they'd bought the core package for their simulators from the same company. And I bet you Mercedes have fed that back in to corrupt everybody else. And they're waiting for next year where it will correlate and everything's going to be perfect.
I just like the idea of like some software company out there being like, yeah, we have the ultimate best correlation package. And it's just garbage.
And you know they won the contract because I bet you it was cheaper. And this is the kind of crap that the cost cap introduces, right? Cost cap, it's going to make it more competitive. What it does is it introduces a lowest cost bidding situation. So we all end up with terrible racing, and it's just awful. This is the problem with cost caps.
Yeah. I think that, so Red Bull's now had 2 races where it hasn't gone well, maybe 3 if you go Miami.
Yeah, because Miami wasn't good when they were starting. They tiled it in at the very end.
And then Max, I think, had the pace, but hit the cone, or the bollard, which broke his floor, and that probably cost him a little bit of pace. But also, Miami has high curbs, which the Red Bull doesn't ride curbs very well. Imola gave a lot of drivers fits, I think. There was Ricardo had a thing about, like, why are we racing here? I mean, I know it's Imola, but why are we racing here?
Because it's a good track.
It is
the
a good
car's
track.
too wide, though.
Yeah. All right, you can only lose Imola or Monaco. Pick one.
Monaco. Monaco.
At least there's overtaking at Imola.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I think, like, Canada is a bit of a bounce back. Like, I think it's a bit more of a purpose-built track.
Yeah.
It's also got that really long straight, which if the Red Bull is still as slippery as the Red Bull has, they should be great on. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if Adrian Newey was whispering even into the car on the day-to-day, or if Red Bull have really started to lost their way, and do we have a wide-open championship?
I was so surprised to see him on the pit wall again this weekend.
Oh, he's still there.
He's still there, but he's supposedly not involved in technical conversations, and I don't understand why he's what?
I mean, if you had that good of a seat to a Grand Prix, wouldn't you go too?
Yeah, but this is talking about Christian Horner, who's going to be vindictive and tell you to get out.
But has he?
So, I don't know. That's what's confusing to me.
To be fair, he could still get rehired by Red Bull. Maybe they're trying to sweet talk him.
True. It would be like Nigel Mansell when he said he was going to quit and retire and ended up going back to Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
Shall we move on to our predictions for Canada?
Sure.
Okay. I predict that Max is not going to be on the podium.
Bold.
Again. Bold. I think Charles will win because he's got his new engineer and he's dialed in now. Plus, he's had his first win.
Will he convert another pole?
Unclear about that. I'm not sure about that. I think Norris or McLaren's might be in a good situation there. There will be an incident involving a beaver, and it will cause somebody's car to retire.
Ooh. It just says here retirement. Does that mean like a beaver could like bite somebody on the Sky team and they just decide to retire from Sky?
I'm going to add of a driver from the race or qualifying.
If K-Mag kills a beaver, is that somehow still not a penalty point?
Even if he causes it in the most disgusting and vile way by purposefully driving into it, the stewards will just decide, oh no, it's okay.
Is it beavers at Canada or is it something else? I thought it was like weasels.
I don't think it's weasels. We've got Godzilla at Singapore.
Right, we have the lizards.
We had
it's gophers.
beavers.
No,
is it gophers? No,
what animal is around the circuit Gilles Villeneuve?
Fishes. It's not fishes.
Groundhogs. It's groundhogs.
It's groundhogs. I will adjust that.
To make another movie reference, it's a Caddyshack situation.
I still haven't seen Caddyshack.
Have you watched any movies? Or do you just watch Hot Fuzz on repeat?
So, the thing you need to remember, and I have to explain this to a lot of the people I've worked with over the years, is my cultural reference point is completely different to yours until I'm like 21 when I came to America, right? And so there's all these movies that are huge in American urban folklore that I have missed. Admittedly, The Sound of Music is not one of those, nor is The Godfather. But Caddyshack, I think, while it was, released and everybody knows about it in England, I feel it sits in a different place, socially speaking.
That's fair. So I assume Animal House is also not on your have-seen list.
I have seen that. I enjoyed that.
All right, well, now we're just all over the place then, because, Caddyshack is what Animal House at the golf course.
Well, see, then I must know the plot then. What's the point in seeing Caddyshack? One last prediction from your bad self.
Oh, yes, that Stroll will become a champion, and by that I mean he will go into the wall of champions.
Is this because he's misread the law that if you go into it, you become a champion eventually, when it's actually the other way around, which is you go into it after becoming a champion?
I think it's more of just he's not that great and is going to overhit the chicane and go into it. I mean, but didn't Magnussen total his car in the Wall of Champions recently? Or no, it was either Magnussen or no, it was Grosjean. A couple of years ago.
Grosjean totaling his car anywhere is just not really shocking or surprising.
Well, once again, thanks for listening. How would you fix the Monaco Grand Prix? You can reach out to us on Threads. YouTube comments, email, tinfoil helmets, or feedback at tinfoilhelmets.com. Let us know how you would fix Monaco, and also your conspiracies, feedbacks, and wants. And don't forget to tell your friends to like, listen, rate, and subscribe. And if you know Dominic, feel free to text him movies and musicals you think he should watch. Tonight, Dominic forgets how to count backwards from 3.